Ahoy captains, and welcome to my best 8 ships of 2022. If this is your first time checking out my channel, I'm Baz and I make videos for whatever game I happen to be playing, and for the past 2 years, that has mostly been World of Warships Legends. If you like what you see, check out my other videos because I do have a lot of them. Also, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe buttons to help out my little channel. It's free and I don't even earn a dime from this. Also, stay tuned until the end of the video for another special Easter egg. Now let's get started. Here are what I think are the strongest ships to be released in 2022. First up is the Summer CE. This is a Tier 7 American destroyer. It was released in the March update as the campaign ship. And yes, we have to call it the Summers with a CE on the end because you'll never get another chance to receive this ship again because it's that damn good. And because calling it the Summers OP would be a little too pronounced. But when you look at the stats of this thing, everything is actually extremely average. Not much stands out either way other than the amount of torps it has, which is tied for the second most at the tier. In fact, to offset that, those torps are the slowest to reload at the tier. So what makes the Summer so special? Well, think American Yadachi. It has 3 torp launchers with 4 torps each though, which is closer to the Shimakaze than the Yadachi. Anyways, the damage per torpedo isn't as crazy as Japanese ones, but because it has so many, you can deploy walls of skill that are tough to dodge. It's also fairly quick and nimble too, which makes it easier to get into position to torp and to get out of trouble if you need to. It also has 8 guns, tied for the most of the tier, so it can hold its own in a gunfight even though its reload speed isn't very good. It also has that extended USN smokescreen which you can use to help get capture points or escape sticky situations. But not to farm damage off of battleships, right good players? All in all, because this ship doesn't have many weaknesses and it's average at a lot of things, you can use commander skills and inspirations to set it up the way you like it, whether it be a gunboat, torp boat, or hybrid, and that's what makes it so difficult to counter. And those are the reasons why I think the Summer CE was the 8th best ship released in 2022. Number 7 on my list is the Minotaur. This is the legendary British cruiser. This was actually released in the holiday update on December 20th in 2021 as the first and to this date only legendary tier campaign reward. Most people would have unlocked this in 2022, so that's why it makes the list. And boy, it was a monster when it first arrived, wasn't it? No one knew how to deal with this thing at first. It has multiple consumables to set up your perfect build, like a super heal, sonar, and either smoke or radar. Just in case you missed picking it up through the campaign, it was added to the bureau during the very next update for anyone to obtain for free. It shoots armor-piercing shells only, but due to its numerous guns, 12 to be exact, it is the second highest AP DPM in the game, next only to Colbert. The Minnow's turrets also turn faster than any other cruiser in the entire game. They're so fast that they even turn faster than the average destroyer. It's also currently the only legendary cruiser with torpedoes that's always obtainable, giving it another one up over its peers. It has 16 torps and they have a 10-kilometer range, so they're pretty strong too. Lastly, this thing has a base AA rating of 100, obviously the best in the entire game. I'd say that once the Des Moines was released, this ship was power prepped a little. By that time, people knew how to deal with them a little bit better, so you don't see them dominating as much as before, and that's why it's not higher up on this list. But this thing can still be an offensive beast in the right hands and is definitely deserving of a spot as one of the best ships of 2022. Number 6 is the Serov. This is a Tier 5 Russian carrier, and it was released in March of 2022 along with all the other Russian carriers. Unique to it are skip bombs in that it launches all of its bombs or torps in one dive, making it hard for enemies to dodge your salvos. This also means that you don't need to worry about doing safety drops to conserve planes. At the end of the year, all carriers in the game were tweaked and the Serov got big nerfs to its HE skip bombs and with its fire starting chance reduced by 10% and HE penetration being reduced as well. This being the reason why it's not higher up on the list. But ain't no nerfs gonna slow the Serov down. Its torp bombers are still the fastest, and its torp range is the furthest by far. And the big one, the torpedo alpha strike of over 22,000 is by far the highest at the tier. Over 7,000 more than the next closest. If you see this thing's torp bombers headed towards you, get out of the way, man! It also has the second fastest dive bombers, and because it's hitting you with up to 6 bombs at once, its fire's chance is still relatively high in comparison to its peers. Lastly, as I always say when I talk about carriers, It has a massive advantage of having unlimited range, so it can launch attack after attack without the risk of return enemy fire. Oh yeah, and don't forget that good old Russian bias when it comes to RNG. Number 5 on the list is the Brandenburg. This is the Tier 7 German battleship. The secret love child of the Tirpitz and Odin, it was a campaign ship for the update released on January 21st of 2022. It has a turtleback Tirpitz hull with quick-firing Odin turrets. But wait, the Odin only has 3 turrets, and this thing has 4, which means 12 guns. Only the Kansas has as many guns at Tier 7. Due to those numerous guns and its fairly quick reload, the Bieberg has the 3rd best AP DPM at the tier. Those turrets are also tied for the 3rd fastest at the tier. It's also got the 5th best fire starting chance, so you can really get the barbecue started with those low-cal guns. It's also got top 5 speed, and of course it has torpedoes, which very few battleships sport. And the secondaries. Oh, the secondaries. Only the recently released Bismarck B has further reaching secondaries in the entire game. I love putting a fire starting build on my Bieberg so that my secondary hits will do more than just raw damage. When played properly, this thing can tank a ton of damage while also causing the enemies to flee and take cover from its secondaries. Lastly, it's got excellent AA. What more could you ask for from a brawler? Number 4, the Black. This is a Tier 7 American destroyer. And it was a June 2022 update campaign ship where there was a no-brainer choice between a Tier 7 destroyer and a Tier 5 carrier. The smoke radar combo in a DD is pretty unique. With the Pan-Asian line, you have to choose between the two. The Black Smoke is also of the USN variety, so it lasts longer and has a longer dispersion time. Its slow but stealthy torps have high damage and can be made to be the hardest torps to dodge in the entire game using the right commander setup. And because the gun reload is already so low, using a full-on torp build barely hinders it, meaning you'll have a double threat on your hands. Those torps have the 2nd highest damage at the tier, the 2nd lowest detectability at the tier, and the furthest range at the tier. They also have an above average reload time too. And just for good measure, it's tied for having the quickest turrets, it has very good AA, and a sharp rudder. This thing has all kinds of strengths, and that's why I think it was the best destroyer released in 2022. Number 3, the Des Moines. This is the legendary tier American cruiser. It was released during the anniversary update in April of 2022. It has both sonar and radar, it has an amazing rate of fire, and was originally OP straight out of the gate. It was so OP that it got nerfed about 4 months later, but those nerfs just turned an overpowered ship to a simply powered ship. Increasing the reload by a half a second barely changed anything. Its HE and AP shell damage did get significantly lowered, and its OP radar got cut by 10 seconds. Those changes didn't exactly neuter it. If you're familiar with the Baltimore, you'll be comfortable with the Des Moines. It's got great ballistics and penetration. For its gun caliber, which is 203mm, its AP DPM is great. You won't believe this, but it actually has the best rudder at the tier, making it the most maneuverable legendary cruiser. And lastly, it's got decent armor and fantastic AA. That's why I think it was the best cruiser released in 2022. Alright, number 2, the Hyuga. This is a Tier 5 Japanese battleship, and it was also released in April during the anniversary update. A main battery reload booster is just insane to have on a Tier 5 battleship. It's got 12 guns too, so the firepower potential is mind-blowing. It is the 2nd best HE and AP DPM among Tier 5 battleships. It also has the 2nd furthest range and is tied for the 4th fastest turrets. So it shouldn't have any defensive strengths then, right? Well, it actually has the highest amount of hit points in Tier 5. It also has a solid torp belt. It actually does have some weaknesses though. It's got the worst rudder and has terrible AA. Its armor scheme also isn't the greatest, but guess what? All those things can be mitigated if you play smart. If there isn't a carrier in your match, get ready to lick your chops. Add it all up, and in my opinion, the Hyuga was the best battleship released in 2022. Alright guys, here it is, the number 1 ship released in 2022, and it's the Ark Royal. This is a Tier 5 British carrier, and it was released during the Halloween update and was gone by the end of it just a few weeks later. And why did it leave the store faster than any other ship ever added to the game? Because it's OP as hell. Where do I start with this thing? Its 9 plane squadrons are the largest at the tier, and tied for the largest in the entire game with some Tier 7 carriers and both current legendary carriers. But that's not all. Due to the carpet bombing trait that British CVs have, this means that each time you go in for a strike with your HE bombs, you're dropping 4 bombs per plane for a total of 12 bombs in one drop. And because you get 3 planes per drop, and 9 planes in that aforementioned squadron, you can drop up to 36 bombs every time you launch your planes from your carrier. Long story short, the carnage that these 9 planes and 36 bombs can cause can be measured by something called alpha damage. In the Ark Royal's HE bomb, alpha damage is nearly 3 times the average of the Tier 5 Tech Tree carriers. And that's 25,000 more than the next closest carrier, the Furious. Only Implacable, Lexington, and Midway are close, and those damn ships are 2 and 4 tiers above the damned Ark Royal. Oh yeah, and that also means this thing starts fires like no other ship in the entire game. Plus, its planes fly at a lower altitude than other carriers, which makes hitting your target a whole lot easier to boot. The HE bombs may be the highlight of the Ark, but its torp bombers are the second highest alpha damage too, with only the Seer up ahead of it, and again, this due to those huge squadrons it has. So it should have some weaknesses, right? Its quote weakness is the HP of its planes, but that can be buffed with the commander to negate it entirely. Well, that short chat about its weaknesses was fun, but let's get back to more strengths because they don't seem to end. It has the second highest HP at the tier, only 400 hit points from top spot. It has a 25% torque belt, while every other CV at the tier apart from the Zoe hull at a pathetic 4% don't even have one. Finally, its planes are also some of the fastest, and its own base AA rating is the second best at the tier, only 1 point behind the Ranger for top spot. All those reasons, plus the times I was sunk by one of these suckers, are why I think the Ark Royal was the best overall ship released in 2022. What do you guys think were the best ships released in 2022? You let me know in the comments down below. And now that that's all wrapped up, here's a special message from someone you may or may not know. Whoa, guys woke me up there. Must have fallen asleep playing Legends again since it's so boring to play now. No, I'm joking. We're not jumping on the whole Legends is dying bandwagon because it's not. Ahoy Captains, it's Vaz. I hope you guys had a good holiday and a good New Year's. I thought a lot about what I wanted to say here, and it's this. Let's be a little more positive and optimistic about the game, because there's a lot to look forward to upcoming in Legends. Let's be honest, it was a tough year for WoWs. Let's cut these guys some slack though. The devs, I mean. Remember, they had to up and move their entire offices because that Russian leader guy is a small peen or whatever. Just think about the logistics involved in that, especially with how quickly they reacted, which I thought was pretty good. Well, so I'm willing to give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Not too much though, because it still is wargaming after all. I'm going to be more optimistic this year for 2023. Hopefully things have settled down for them and we'll get some more diverse content. Let's give wargaming a little more time and see what happens when we get training rooms, clans, and in-depth stats. Those are the things that I'm looking forward to anyways. What are you guys looking forward to in 2023? Anything? Let me know in the comments down below. And let me know what you thought of this video and my ship selection. What can I improve upon, and what were your guys' best ships that were released in 2022? Lastly, I'd like to give another big thank you to the Galloping Major over at the Back to the Board channel for allowing me to use the footage of the Ark Royal for this video. If you haven't checked out his YouTube channel yet, I'll link it down below in the description. Well, that's going to be it for this video. If you could, hit those thumbs up and subscribe buttons for me, guys. And as always, take care of yourselves and do what makes you happy.